Welcome back to another heart to heart chat. We are going to be folding laundry while we talk today because we've got to multitask, and I have a hot topic for you. I think it's a hot topic. It's a topic at least that I think might be considered controversial, and it might depend on what generation you grew up in. So I am a millennial. I was born in '88. So the topic that we're going to be talking about is, should parents apologize to their children when they are in the wrong? I think growing up, perhaps, or maybe some of the older generations of our time, that was probably just not something that they did. I don't think that apologizing to their children was ever a thing. It was just like, children are to be seen, not heard, and I don't think children really had a voice. And as the years have gone, I think more and more that mindset is changing a bit. But I don't know. This is a topic. I want to say nowadays, probably even with like the gentle parenting. I'm not necessarily pro gentle parenting or pro any sort of style of parenting necessarily. I think that parents need to be parents, and I think that you can be a gentle parent but also being authoritative, in that there can be compassion and kindness and what's another word? I don't know. Like, we still have to be parents, right? We can't be our kids' best friend. They need a parent, right? So, but how can we do that while also teaching them compassion and kindness, and that they're being listened to and heard? Because I do think that growing up, if you never feel like your parents are listening to you, it can make you feel maybe like it can actually ruin the relationship between the child and the parent. And so I do think that it's so important to create a connection and a relationship with your children where they feel like they can trust you. And if we are constantly yelling at our kids and constantly making them feel like really bad, or like they can't tell us the truth about something because they're always going to be in trouble, like, it's just going to create distance. It's going to create lies between the children and the parents. And anyways, but specifically, what happens when the parent is in the wrong? They make a mistake. I mean, we're a human, right? We make mistakes. What happens when the parent makes mistakes? Like, do they apologize? Do they admit they're wrong? Do they, or should they do that? Does it usurp their authority if they admit they're wrong? Does it change the relationship, the dynamic? Well, I do think it changes the relationship and the dynamic when a parent apologizes. I think it builds trust. And I also think that it creates, what's the word I want to say for that one? Because as parents, we are supposed to be modeling behavior. We are supposed to be modeling behavior, teaching our children, not just using our words to teach, but with our actions, showing them how to behave, how to act, how to handle certain situations that we may come across. And one of the things I believe so wholeheartedly in is apologizing when you're wrong, because just because you're a parent and you're older or whatever, it doesn't mean that you never make mistakes. You absolutely make mistakes. All the time I make mistakes. How foolish of me to think that I wouldn't make a mistake. And I think it not only does it build trust, but it also encourages that in a child, because you're modeling the behavior to the child and showing them and being honest and saying, yeah, mommy or daddy, you know, I made a mistake, and this is what I did. I shouldn't have done it. You know, I'm a sinner just like you. Like, everybody's a sinner. We all make mistakes, and I just want to let you know that, like, I'm sorry and I need to work on that. I want to do better for you, and or you didn't deserve whatever. Like, I think apologizing is a very healthy thing, but also, like, it also teaches them forgiveness. And, like, we're wanting to raise our children to know Christ, and we need to be modeling that as best as we can. And, you know, what better way than to model repentance and forgiveness? And we're not, like, yeah, we would be foolish to think that we never make mistakes. And so I truly believe that is very important, that when you do, you take the time to sit down with them, look them face in the face, and have a genuine apology, a heart to heart, if you will, apology and conversation to say, like, where you were wrong. Now, let's just say that you have older children and maybe they're calling you out on your mistakes. That might be a little bit harder, because then we are now dealing with a pride issue, are we not? Because it doesn't really feel good to have someone calling you out on your sin or your mistakes or your shortcomings, right? And so what would be the tendency to do when that situation arises? I would say we go in defense mode. It wasn't that big of a deal. You know, brushing it off and minimizing the effect that it perhaps had on the child. Yeah, so, you know, we gotta be really careful. Because that can actually lead, I think, to long-term, I don't want to say trauma, but maybe perhaps a little trauma. Depends on the relationship between the child and the parent, but, like, that could be a lifelong frustration for the child if they never got a genuine apology. Because I do believe how you apologize makes a difference, because it's a heart thing, right? Like God, it's always talking about, like, your heart. And if you're just saying, I'm sorry I hurt you, like, is that, like, is that really in your heart? And God knows what's in your heart, right? And I think that children they're pretty intuitive, pretty smarter than what we give them credit for. I think they really know when they're getting a genuine apology, and then when they're being brushed off and, you know, just trying to appease them so they shut up, you know, basically. And I know, like, if I were in that position, if I were a child growing up and maybe so desperately needing an apology for whatever reason, if my parent was brushing me off, not giving me a genuine apology, or being defensive, or putting up a lot of excuses, it would make me frustrated. It would kind of pull that relationship apart. I'm not saying that that's like a deal breaker in a relationship. It could be, depending on the circumstance, but it could just create like a divide, because I think that it slowly breaks a trust bond. It breaks the trust bond when you, as a child, feel like, you know, your parents not acknowledging maybe the hurt that was caused, and they're not acknowledging, and then not caring, because that's kind of what it comes out as when an apology is not genuine. And so I, you know, as a parent, as we're raising our children, I thought that was a really good topic to talk about, because, like, how easy it is to become prideful and arrogant and feel like I didn't do anything wrong. I told them no, you know, Our behaviors matter. Fruit of the Spirit, what is one of them? Self-control. I'm going to go through all of them almost in the situation, but like I think of self-control, how our behavior, and if we're not practicing self-control, or if we're, whatever, I'm just saying, if there's a situation that you need to apologize for, I believe that even as a parent, you need to apologize. But it takes deep self-reflection, because if your go-to attitude is I don't need to apologize to my kid, I would say that you need to self-reflect a little bit, a deeper self-reflection, because we're not perfect people. We're all sinners. We live in a fallen world, and how important is it? You know, if you're asking your kids to apologize, to admit when they're wrong, you know, why, like, and you're not modeling that yourself, I mean, hypocrite. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, hypocrite. Why would I do that if you're not doing it? Anyway, I feel like that's a heavy topic. It could, or at least it perhaps could be a heavy topic, especially if you were a child once, you know, and were in a situation where you confronted your parents about something that really upset you, and they didn't acknowledge the hurt and pain that it caused you, you know. And it's frustrating, because it's like, on one hand, you know, we don't want to be, you know, labeling everybody and everything as toxic and blah blah blah, and oh, they hurt my feelings. Like, we gotta toughen up and whatever. There is room for forgiveness, but how can there be forgiveness without asking for it, without the repentance, you know? And I think that is something that maybe could be harder for some, is the repentance part. And that's probably the part that a child needs the most, you know, because I think a child has probably already forgiven their parents for whatever mistakes, you know, they had made or whatever. And let's be real, we're parents, we're gonna make mistakes. But the child's probably already forgiven, but what they need in order to kind of heal that is the repentance part, the parent admitting, like, yeah, I messed up and I'm really sorry, and man, if I could go back, I would, and I'm so sorry that this affected your life, and you know, will you please forgive me? And I do hope and pray that I can, you know, I'm going to work on being better in the future. I know it's like it's a tough conversation, and I guess, yeah. What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear, like, have you ever? Well, you don't need to be like, you don't have to get personal. You know, it's a public thing, public forum, but you know, if you feel like sharing what your thoughts are about apologizing. I mean, I feel pretty strongly about it, but if you have a different take on it, I would really love to hear that, because I'm open to hearing other arguments. But or let me know if you think that, you know, what I said is kind of spot on for you. Like, have you ever been through that situation where you just needed an apology and your parent wouldn't give it to you, or kind of like gave the, like, I'm sorry, I did the best I could, you know? It's like, of course, like, we understand that, and we have that compassion and that grace for them, or that, you know, forgiveness for it. But having someone truly acknowledge and feel like, not, you don't want to, I'm not trying to say I want them to feel bad, but like a genuine, like, a reflection of, like, oh yeah, I actually did mess up and I am really sorry, and wow, I didn't realize it affected you so bad. Like, yeah. Anyway, what are your thoughts on that? And That's basically all I have for this video. I got my laundry almost done. All right, see you in the next heart-to-heart chat. Bye.